The film starts in 1933 inside the clinic of New York medical practitioner Bert, who helps injured veterans of the First World War with their injuries. Traditional doctors don't like his practice, and they especially hate the fact that he tries to make his own medicine. But Bert really wants to help these veterans because he also suffers from great injuries that he received during the war. One morning, his friend Harold, who served with him in the war and is now an aspiring lawyer, asks Bert to meet him at the chapel. Harold knows that Bert wanted the commander of their regiment, General Bill, to speak at his Veterans Gala, so he asks his friend to prepare himself. He then introduces Bert to Bill's daughter, Liz, who guides them to the chapel where Bill's dead body is being kept. Bert greatly admired the man, so he is in a state of shock. However, Liz tells them that they only have 2 hours to perform an autopsy to find out if Bill died of natural causes. They're talking about this when their friend Milton, who also served under General Bill, shows up there and warns his friends to not get involved with this case. But Bert wants to know the truth, so they take the general's body back to the hospital where Bert will help a mortician named Irma as she performs the autopsy. After a nurse orders Harold and Milton to leave the room, Irma starts working, and soon they find out that Bill was most likely poisoned. After the autopsy is done, she asks Bert to move on with his life instead of living in the past. Bert's confused, but he learns that Harold mentioned to her how Bert still loves his wife, who doesn't even want to live with him, and this is why Irma said such things. He's a little upset, but he doesn't have even a moment to waste since they have to meet Liz that evening. However, they notice that Liz is trying to run away from them. They try to ask her what's wrong, and she explains how her friend Tom Voss has asked her to be careful since someone might try to silence her. She's freaking out, but still shares how her father refused an offer to join a powerful alliance, and this is why he was killed. Unfortunately, before she can say anything else, a man pushes her onto the road and she gets crushed under a car. The man then blames her death on Bert and Harold, and they have to run out of there and hide as people start looking for them. Things are looking quite bad for Bert, but his story doesn't really start here. It starts in 1918 when his father-in-law and his wife Beatrice force him to join the First World War. At the front, Bert finds out that the African-American soldiers are being treated poorly, and this is exactly why General Bill asks him to lead the unit, which includes Harold and Milton. That same day, Bert and Harold promise to save each other's life at all costs, and this marks the beginning of their brotherly bond. Pretty soon, this bond is tested when both of them get injured while trying to save each other. They are being treated by a nurse named Valerie, who likes to keep the shrapnel extracted from the bodies of these soldiers. The hospital administration doesn't like her actions, but Harold voices his support for her. To thank him, Valerie fixes a drink for him, and soon Bert also joins them. When he asks what she does with the shrapnel, she claims it's a secret. Only after Bert and Harold sing a special song for her does she agree to show them her art collection that she made from all of this metal. She tells them how she's been all over Europe and she can help Bert find some prosthetics for his eye that he lost in the battle. With nothing to lose, the friends agree to join her, and just like that, they're in Amsterdam where Valerie introduces them to Paul and Henry, who sell these prosthetics. Bert quickly learns that both men are actually spies who help people like Valerie to get information. After getting a prosthetic for his eye, Bert feels much better, so he spends some crazy months partying in Amsterdam with Harold and Valerie, who are in love with each other. The three friends form a lifelong pact, but after a while, Bert starts missing Beatrice and he tells his friends that he needs to go back to America. Valerie begs him to stay since he won't find happiness by going back, but Bert has made up his mind, so he leaves. However, just as Valerie warned, Bert soon becomes an outcast and his father-in-law and wife throw him out of his own apartment. He tries to help the veterans with their injuries, but develops an addiction to morphine which he takes for his back pain. He eventually gets arrested, and this is when Harold asks Valerie to see if her powerful family can get Bert out of the prison. Valerie doesn't want to talk to her family, but she wants to help Bert, so she agrees. However, the very next day, she leaves Harold behind without even saying goodbye. The good news is that Bert is released from prison and he spends the next 10 years helping the veterans alongside his dear friend Harold. But now they are suspects in Liz's murder and they need to hide. So, Bert decides to go to Beatrice's place since he was supposed to have dinner with her that evening. Inside her apartment, Harold helps him with his prosthetic before he goes to see his wife, who doesn't even want to have dinner with him. Bert is heartbroken when Beatrice tells him that she really loved him once, but his scars have made him an eyesore and she can't be with him anymore. This is when Harold joins the conversation and explains how they are being hunted for killing Liz. When he mentions Tom, Beatrice explains how the Voss family is among the elite of New York. They're talking about this when Detective Getwiller and his partner show up there to arrest Bert and Harold. Getwiller knows Bert and even gets medicine from him for his own back pain, so he gives him a chance to explain things. Bert tells him that they have been framed and they can prove it by showing him the contract Liz signed to hire them. Getwiller also asks for Bill's autopsy report and advises Bert to keep him informed about his meeting with Tom. After the detectives leave, Bert and Harold get out of Beatrice's house, and this is when they run into the man who killed Liz. He tells them that he works for the Committee of Five and they should keep their mouths shut or they will suffer the same fate as Bill and his daughter. The friends now understand that they need to prove they're innocent ASAP, so they visit Tom's place the very next day where his wife Libby receives them. She's showing them around the house when suddenly Valerie walks into the room. Bert and Harold are shell-shocked, and so is Valerie, who takes them into her room. While Libby is asking the guards to throw the intruders out of her house, Valerie explains that she is Tom's sister and she has been living in New Jersey for 10 years because of her nerve disorder. The three of them are still having this reunion when a guard enters the room and knocks out Bert before getting knocked out himself by Harold. Bert comes back to his senses to find Tom sitting in front of him. He's a soft-spoken guy, and after finding out that his sister advised Liz to seek Harold and Bert's help, he feels responsible and decides to help them. He tells them that the only man who can know about the identity of Bill's killer is General Gill, who is the most decorated soldier in America. In fact, Libby even has a newsreel of him giving a speech on the rights of veterans. After watching the newsreel, Tom is telling Bert about his habit of birdwatching when Valerie asks Harold to meet her again the next day because she also wants to meet the general. The two friends then leave Voss Estate, and the next day Bert is waiting for Harold to pick him up, but his friend doesn't show up. Instead, his secretary tells him that the detectives want to see him. So, while Harold is spending some intimate time with Valerie, Bert is trying to negotiate with the detectives who want the autopsy report. Unfortunately for Bert, the man who killed Liz broke Irma's arm and stole the report from her. Bert's disappointed, but he's more worried about Irma's injuries, so he helps put the bandage correctly around her arm. He then gives her a kiss and sits down to listen to some music, and this is when Beatrice shows up there and slaps him in the face. She's jealous of Irma and asks Bert to come back and live with her once again. When she leaves after giving him the good news, Bert and Irma explain how the autopsy report was stolen. Bert gets Getwiller off his back by giving him some new medication for his back pain. After the detectives leave, Bert tells Irma to be careful before leaving her near her apartment. He then meets Harold, who's sitting with Valerie in his office. He tries to explain why he couldn't pick up Bert earlier, but Bert asks him to explain things later since they need to drive up to Gil's place that very same day. However, Harold and Valerie make a stop outside a five-star hotel, which confuses Bert. He follows his friends into the hotel to find Paul sitting at a table. He's trying to tell them something, but a guy throws water in his face, so he takes them back to his office where they meet up with Henry. This is when Harold finally shares how he and Valerie followed Liz's killer to a clinic where doctors were conducting experiments on patients. Harold got into a fight with a man inside the clinic, but by firing some bullets into the air, Valerie bought enough time for them to escape. After hearing this story, Bert is even more confused, but this is when Henry reveals that an organization wants to throw out the democracy in America and place Gil as a dictator just like they did in Italy and Germany. He says that Bert and his friends have to convince Gil to help them find the people running this organization. The friends finally realize they are now involved in something that can change the fate of the world, so they immediately drive over to Gil's place. While walking over to the house, Valerie falls over because of her disorder, and Gil's wife asks them to get lost, thinking they are some drunk fans of her husband. However, she soon calls them back and escorts them up to Gil's room, who saw the pictures that the three of them took with him many years ago. He says he remembers meeting three special soldiers, but he isn't sure about their identity, so they have to sing the song they sang for him during their first meeting. Bert and his friends have to think for a few moments, but they soon remember the song, and after singing it, Gil agrees to hear them out. After learning that his friend Bill was poisoned, Gil shares how Bill saw something in Rome that disturbed him, but he was killed before he could tell the world about it. Gil knows who might be responsible for his death, since the same people have sent a guy over to his house with a lot of money. This organization wants Gil to give a speech that they prepared. When he asks the guy carrying the money about the agenda of his organization, The man says they want to remove the concept of the presidency from the country and place Gil as their supreme leader. He also slips up and claims to be working for the Committee of the Five, which confirms all of Gil's suspicions. He agrees to give the speech, but at Bert's gala, and the guy is happy with his answer. After the man leaves with the money, Bert and his friends take Gil to Tom's office. Tom and Libby tell the general to say what he really wants to say at the reunion, since his speech will be broadcasted all over the world via radio. A few days after this meeting, Bert is getting ready for the biggest veterans reunion that he has ever organized. Meanwhile, Gil asks Henry and Paul about their true goals, and the spies assure him that they are trying to save the world from some very bad people. They ask him to tell the whole world what this organization is trying to do to our country, and this will allow them to capture the rotten eggs. After everything is in motion, Bert starts the reunion celebrations and everyone starts having a good time. People are proud of Bert, and his father-in-law is even willing to accept him into his family. They want to meet the general, but the general makes it clear that he doesn't like the way they treated a war hero like Bert. While people are meeting each other, Valerie is recording the whole evening. She follows Tom as he takes Gil to meet some industrialists and media moguls. These men use a subtle way to tell Gil that he will be rewarded handsomely if he helps them take over the country. Gil isn't interested in their offers, but he keeps quiet and lets Valerie record the faces of these traitors. Later on, Tom is putting some drops in his eyes and gives them to Bert as well, whose back pain is suddenly gone. Tom then hands Gil a bag full of money and asks him not to say anything stupid in his speech or he will become another victim like Bill. But this warning doesn't work whatsoever because Gil starts his speech by telling everyone how these rich businessmen are trying to put him in the White House as a dictator so they can use him like they are using Mussolini in Europe. While he is receiving applause for standing up for his country, Valerie and Harold notice that the man who killed Liz is trying to take a shot at Gil. There is no security at the venue, so the two of them go up to the balcony and try to stop the man, who ends up shooting Bert in the stomach. They throw him down the balcony, but he still tries to assassinate Gil. However, soon the veterans take him down. He's screaming about how Tom is a great man, which makes it clear that Tom is behind this whole conspiracy. After Paul and Henry arrest the men responsible for all of this, it turns out that Tom loved the Nazi Party and the European dictators. He knew that there will be another war soon and he planned to make a fortune through it. He even admits that he was keeping Valerie sick by giving her bad medicine so that she doesn't embarrass him anymore. Looking at him, Bert wonders why these rich people are never satisfied with the wealth they have. He believes that wealth can't really make you happy, and after seeing Valerie kiss Harold, he is sure that it's actually love for the people in your life that can truly satisfy you. After all of this ends, the general testifies in front of Congress, and the plot against American democracy is finally stopped. However, no member of the Committee of Five was ever charged, including Tom, who admitted to his crimes. Since Valerie and Harold can't really marry each other in America, they are forced to leave that very evening. While seeing them off, Bert thinks about following them, but he wants to make America the kind of place where his friends can live happily without any fear. So he stays behind and tries to find love with Irma, who has taken a liking to him. The film ends by showing us all of the moments Bert and Harold spent with Valerie when they were having the time of their lives in Amsterdam. If you enjoyed that recap, I got a good feeling you'll enjoy this one too. Click on the video on your screen for more.